got assigned as a grunt. My MOS is 0341 mortars. But they needed grunts, And so the first night, or the first day and the first night, we got united with Echo Company. The new guys did, and we moved at night. We got hit, and I'm thinking, first night and we get hit, and I remember before it got dark, we were moving and we got hit at night. The Marine that was kind of assigned to protect me, or to watch over me at the time, he says, "Don't lose me. If something happens, stay right on my ass." And shit hit the fan and I lost him, and it was dark, it was absolutely dark. And I rolled over into a ditch, and I remember the mosquitoes. I didn't have any bug spray or anything, and then finally they came back and found me. I didn't, I wasn't going to shoot or anything, because I didn't know who I was shooting at. It was so damn dark, tracers flying everywhere. And so recovered from that, and so the next day, and this is really where my Vietnam experience starts. The next day I'm assigned, this is my second day in the bush. I'm assigned to Walk Point. And, that was it. I was a new guy and I was going to Walk Point. So started out that morning. I knew nothing about Walking Point. I knew nothing. I could barely, manage the heat, manage the weight of my pack, ammunition, all that kind of stuff. I hadn't really sighted in my rifle yet. That's how bad it was. Anyway, I get assigned to Walk Point. And it was actually a battalion operation. So later to come find out, I was point guy for the whole battalion. So a couple hours into it, I'm walking along and I had a guy behind me and a guy to my flank. And I came to a hedgerow, and there was one opening in a hedgerow. And even just with 2 days in, I just knew something was wrong. I just absolutely knew something was wrong. And I looked at that hedgerow, and I knelt down. And of course, the guys around me, they'd been in country a lot longer than I did. Man, they scattered. They didn't know why I was reacting the way I did, I wasn't communicating with them. I was trying to figure out why I had felt it. And I remember at the time, I just smelled it. I just smelled something was just not right. And only entryway to the next field, and I looked down at the ground, and I noticed it was totally clean of footsteps, which is unusual. I'll kind of find out later, is that most booby traps or ambushes are set with, a lot of foot tracks and make it look user-friendly kind of thing. But this wasn't. This was just swept clean. So I stopped, and the whole, of course, everybody behind me stops, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, is that my lieutenant, who I had not met, he was also his first day in the bush. He had come out that morning, and he was I think a staff sergeant, and then they, I forget what the term is when they take an enlisted man, make him an officer. But he had no experience, no combat experience at all. And I could hear him yelling and screaming about get moving, go, go, go. And I didn't want to go at all. I wanted to call up an engineer and kind of take a look at things. And so he had less experience than I did. I probably won the Olympic gold medal for the running broad jump as I leaped through the opening in the hedgerow. And I was on the other side. I was the only guy on the other side of the hedgerow. And I'm standing there looking, and I kind of crouched down a little bit because it was wide open, and I'm thinking, man, this is not looking good. And all of a sudden, there was a tremendous explosion, just a huge explosion. And I remember flying through the air, and then it landed on my back, and I think I was unconscious. And then I woke up, and the lieutenant's leg was laying next to me, right about this far from my hand. And of course, the first thing I do is look down to see if it was my leg. And I actually grabbed my testicles at the same time. And I'm thinking, whoa, this didn't happen to Audie Murphy or John Wayne, here I am. And so I'm laying there, and there's body parts everywhere, but that leg. And then the next thing I saw is Corman. He crawls through the opening there, and he finds me and says, "Can you walk?" And I said, "God, I think so." And so we get him come stumbling across. Of course, there are dead bodies and body parts everywhere because we were right on top of that one fly. And I think I was in shock, pretty much. And so they loaded me on a helicopter. And it was one of those old teardrop Sikorskis from the Korean War. The Marine Corps had nothing new, absolutely nothing new. There was 4 or 5 of us in there that were wounded, and they flew us back to the naval hospital there in Da Nang. And I remember they were triaging guys on picnic tables outside the hospital. So they put me on a picnic table, and these 2 young doctors, Navy doctors, they take off my flag jacket and realize that this laid me right on the table. And they could see I had a piece of shrapnel to go through the back of my left knee and out the front. And I had a piece of shrapnel to go through my back of my shoulder out the front. All clean wounds, and didn't touch tendons, arteries, nothing. Just what are the odds? And then I had a couple pieces that are still in my arm. They didn't take those pieces out. And so the naval doctor, of course, they triage you, and the obvious stuff is okay. I'm not bleeding to death, so they roll me over. And I got this big bruise mark, and they asked me, said, "Well, how's your back feeling?" And I said, "Well, it's a little sore." And they said, "Man, it looks like Dick Butkus hit you, right smack in the back." And it come to find out that it was a piece of shrapnel that had hit my pack, and my pack was full of beanie weenies and all kinds of stuff. And then I had my flak jacket on. Being a new guy, I was all buttoned up, my helmet and all that kind of stuff. Probably saved my life. Oh, I did save my life, because that was the biggest part. It would have cut me right in half. And so I remember the one young doc, he gave me the finger. He stuck his finger up through my knee and waved at me. So I'm one of the few guys probably that ever had the finger through his knee. But yeah, I was extremely lucky. So they sewed me up. They put wire stitches in me, and in my knee and my deal. And then they left me. They put me in the hospital. I'm sitting there, so I'm 2 days in the bush. I got 13 more months to go. How am I going to handle that? And even in that short little time, I started asking myself, why am I here? What is going on here? I don't hate these people. I mean, just that short little amount of time. Why are they trying to kill me? And from then on, it was just a matter of survival. I saw a couple of things like a couple of helicopters crash one time, and they ran into each other on a air base there at Amwa. I saw Bob Hope try to land at Amwa, and the rockets just, the C-130 was in. I think it was a C-130, landed, kept going down the runway and took off again. That's the last we saw of Bob Hope. Mm-hmm. Religion wasn't a big thing, but it was a thing. And I remember an incident where when I was in the bush, we were up on the Laotian border, and the word came down from the sergeant. He said, "You may want to get your affairs in order. The next move is going to be something." And so they had what is that? The Eucharist, the Catholic, the bread, the wine thing. And I remember it was a morning, it was sun shining and everything, and there was this valley that we were going to go into, and supposedly it was just loaded with NBA. And so I'm standing on a hillside taking the Eucharist, the bread, and water then was pretty precious. We had maybe 4 canteens, and they told us at the time that halazone, that's the tablets you put in to kill the bugs, and they would kill anything. So very seldom did we, it seemed like, ever get fresh water. They'd maybe bring a water buffalo out or anything, but we'd always do a creek or a well or something like that. And sometimes rice paddy water was all we had. And yeah, no wonder we had dysentery the whole time. Anyway, we get ready to go down this valley, and they just napalm the bejesus out of this place. And we go down in there, and there's probably about 100 NBA soldiers dead. Yeah, I mean, they really got clobbered. They got caught. And I'm thinking, I'm up there doing the bread and wine gig, talking to Jesus. And, Jesus don't like killing no matter what the reason for. I mean, some guy wrote that in the song. He's got the same Jesus, what's the deal here? And at that moment, I became the most, basically an atheist. None of this shit makes any sense to me, none of it. And so I say, you can have a moral compass without, you find your own spirituality, so to speak. But from then on, I have a hard time being in a church. I go, funerals, stuff like that, but I try to sit in the back. So I got that a little bit out. That's important. I think a lot of guys, though, the old World War II adage, you don't find an atheist in a foxhole. Well, that's bullshit. What you're doing is trying to survive. If it takes whatever, you're going to whatever it. It's one thing about the Marine Corps and about where I was, though. I didn't see a lot of moral, ethical issues that cropped up in terms of dealing with the enemy. Played fair and square. I could have been removed from some of that, But anyway, my experience was, in a lot of firefights, and there weren't a lot in terms of, what you've recorded in some of these guys' things. I blew the shit out of a lot of flora, trees, bushes, whatever. I could see flashes coming, but it was no hand to hand or any of that kind of stuff. A lot of what happened to us out there was accidents. I remember at one time the captain said, everybody beyond the first squad or 2 squads couldn't have a round in their chamber. Yeah, we were shooting each other, you know. Literally, we were shooting each other, you know. Things were getting so hot and heavy, and guys were so jumpy. He also took back a lot of 45s. 45s caused a lot of accidents in our deal. And I remember reading a statistic somewhere where the number of injuries and deaths caused by the enemy or caused by our own ordnance actually killed more of us than the enemy did at times. Or you know, I hate to do that kind of quote, but you see where I'm getting at, you know. There were a lot of duds that the enemy was very resourceful in using. In fact, that's what probably got me was a dud 155 round that they hadn't recovered. But anyway, yeah, my experience was avoid combat as much as I could, you know. I dearly support, you know, what those Marines had to do, you know, to survive. And that's basically what you realize when you're there is you need to survive so you can rotate home. They were just, my original squad leader had 13 months and some odd days, or 12 months and some odd days, probably like 10 days before he rotated out of country, he was killed. You know, there were stories on my own squad was napalmed twice by our own jet. I'm just kind of picking it, and both times I wasn't there. You know, for some reason I was somewhere else. Yeah, being caught in the open twice by our own jets, and at different times. One time, and this is kind of sad, I don't remember his name, but he was from like Dearborn, Michigan or someplace. He's coming back from R&R, and the helicopter was coming in, and it collided with another helicopter, and they were about you know, 200 or 300 feet, 400 feet, and just ignited, you know, that fuel came crashing down. He was dead. In that whole thing coming back from Vietnam into the world, everything had sort of changed. It had changed a lot. You know, the anti-war movement, which I hadn't paid much attention to. And of course, and then you had things like women's rights, Title IX, you know, your whole perspective on women was, you know, way different than when you left, you know. I don't know why I threw that in there, but it was just part of that whole Vietnam thing. You come from the jungle and then all of a sudden you're in society again with no transition. Basically, I lined up on that tarmac and the guy looked at my sea bag and said, "You don't have enough stuff in there." And he was almost not going to let me get on the airplane to go home. He was going to make me go down to the wherever and get a full set of uniforms, greens, you know, winter greens and all that kind of stuff and put it in the sea bag. Just to make a point, I think, you know. But anyway, like I said, I regret the war. I regret what I did, you know. And I think in this day and age, with the amount of knowledge that, and some more critical thinking skills, I wouldn't do it. But I do appreciate the warriors that I served with, you know. I think they all realized that too at the time. Like I said, there were some guys, they lived for it. You know, I wasn't one of those guys. I wasn't even close. But we were looking after each other and making sure that we did the best we could. We were in a rock and a hard place, so, you know.